Hi, everyone. My name is Avi. I'm really delighted to meet you. I was almost going to come out to Moncton for the National Farmers Union conference, but it just didn't quite work. Tanille and I have a big debate in Montreal in less than 2 weeks, which is supposed to be mostly in French. And I think we're all working really hard on getting ready for that. I'm a fourth generation Democratic Socialist. My dad, Stephen Lewis, and my grandpa, David Lewis, were leader of provincial and federal parties at the same time when I was a kid in the 70s. But I've mostly been outside the party until about the last 10 years when I got involved, ran federally a couple of times. And I'm really excited about reinvigorating the party from the ground up as a base building organization with 343 riding associations that really can be community organizing and re-democratizing the party, which is something Tanille and I share a passion for, and you'll hear a lot more about it as we talk, I'm sure. I know that was more than 30 seconds. Tanille.
All right, thank you.
Can I do that?
Yeah,
Tanille?
Tanille, you can throw on another 10, 15 if you want. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi folks. I'm Tanille. I'm born and raised in Campbell River on Vancouver Island. I'm a member of the Licklistow communities. I'm a Wiwake First Nation band member. I'm a social worker by education and trade, so that's the lens that I bring. Super excited to be on this journey. I believe we're in a nation building era right now, and that's a passion of mine. I love bringing people together, being super inclusive, making sure that those voices that never get heard are front center stage. And so I believe this is the work ahead of us right now. Like we need to rebuild the party. We need to be bigger, bolder than we ever have before, and we need to go slay in the next election. So would be honored to participate in doing that work as leader.
Thank you very much. All right, then we'll start with Tanille then for the first question. New Democrats in New Brunswick and the Atlantics beyond Halifax and St. John are often overlooked by the federal party and other New Democrats in general out west. This is likely in part to due to past strains between federal and our provincial branch, as we've had great difficulty communicating with federal and receiving the support we need to continue our rebuild. What would you do to foster a better working relationship with the NDP in New Brunswick?
Yeah. So I think it starts with showing up. I think you need to show up and show out. We need to bridge the giant trench between the federal, provincial, and territorial parties. We as the federal party need to invest in our counterparts as an asset. Like you guys are a total asset to the party, and we're not viewing you in that way. We're not using you in that way. You are what's going to build this larger movement across the country. We should be on the ground for you in elections. We should be witnessing at your EDA meetings, your riding associations, your AGMs, your conventions. Like you really should be our biggest asset in this work. And I hear time and time again that is not felt across the country and many of our EDAs and many of our provincial and territorial counterparts. And we should have the technology in place that allows us to easily communicate with each other across the board. We are so siloed in so many different ways, and it's completely unnecessary. It doesn't have to be like that. There's so much work to do in this space, and I'm so here for it. I love this stuff. Like this is the kind of nation building collaborative work that I live for. It's what I'm built for. It's what I'm passionate about. And yeah, all the respect to you guys, because I've met with a number of previous candidates as well to just talk about their experience. It was one of the first reach outs that I did was to seek those candidates and like tell me how your experience was with your provincial election, federal election. Like I want to hear what went down for you. And it was honestly quite tragic. Listening to how they felt was just it's not who we are. So yeah, lots of work to do and would be so thrilled to do it. We were on the phones for Nova Scotia. We were call hubbing it from BC, trying to support out in the Atlantics, and we just need to do more of that, and we need to be enabled to do that work.
Thank you so much. And actually, I remember Alex, you were one of the people that had a long conversation with Tanille.
I didn't have a long conversation. I just had an email conversation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I gave her my number. I hope to talk later.
All right. Thank you very much, Abby. Do you need me to repeat the question, or do you have it in
No,
front of
no,
you?
no. I've got it here as well, and
Okay.
I'm glad that we're starting there. I think that this is you folks in New Brunswick are in a very similar place to where we are federally, and I think we both have been devastated electorally, and we've had leaders leave. In your case, maybe you were a bit happier to see the leader leave. But in where we are is we're at the bottom of the cycle. And it is, you guys have to rebuild from the ground up. and so do we federally. For me, that starts at the ground with members and with membership. I know you've heard this message just today from our great comrade Christine Wickner, who both Tanille and I know and have organized with a lot in British Columbia. And our loss is your gain. Christine is an extraordinary organizer with a huge amount of experience, particularly in engaging with party mechanisms like commissions on the federal party and the provincial party, where democratic participation is not that encouraged, quite frankly. And that's across the country. So the neglect that Atlantic provinces, particularly a small and poorer province like New Brunswick, feel, I just want you to know it's felt all over. I'm a person who's been in public life for like 35 years. I have deep history in the party. My name is well known in the party. And it took me 14 months to get the central party to call an AGM in the riding of Vancouver Centre so that I could start organizing before the last election. 14 months. We were flapping in the wind, emailing, texting, calling, begging for the central party to just call a meeting so we could start organizing in the riding. So we have a lot of work to do on re-democratizing the NDP at every level. And we're really excited in the leadership race. And Tanille and I have become friends in the course of this race. And we share a lot of passion for these grassroots bottom-up values. We think that we can organize around the federal leadership race could be useful to you, and the provincial rebuilding can be useful to us federally. And we need a whole new movement within the NDP of people who are actually focused on building up the membership. Because it really is, like, for us as federal candidates, we're trying to sell members to bring new people into the party and to bring people who have been disillusioned by the party back. And that's a very similar dynamic that you have to deal with in New Brunswick. So selling memberships, having meetings, gathering people at the base, rebuilding our social fabric as a left party, I think that's job number one, and we're going to do it in concert, I hope.
All right, thank you very much. We'll keep with you, Avi, for this question number 2. New Brunswick is among the poorest provinces in Canada, with large-scale privatization greatly contributing to this. As party leader, how would you fight against the privatization of critical social programs and restore affordability and access to basic needs of Canadians?
Well, first of all, on the issue of privatization, I think we have to be honest around our flagship universal social program of healthcare, that we can't actually talk about stopping privatization anymore because we have to talk about renationalizing it. It's been so privatized. And since the pandemic, we have seen even Harper couldn't touch privatization of healthcare, the third rail of Canadian politics. But in the pandemic, something switched. And with telehealth and all of these new mechanisms that came in and the sort of state of exception that the pandemic represented, we have seen the privatization of healthcare gallop in our country. In Ontario, you can pay $4,300 a year to get a private family doctor. That is no longer a universal public healthcare system. And so I think we have to build back again from the base of actually refighting. The Canada Health Act has not been enforced by any federal government. And so the privatization has been going on, and now it's really out of control. So I think we need to spark a new conversation about healthcare with Canadians. I think that the expansion of dental care that the federal NDP won in the last parliament, I didn't agree with it being means tested. It should be part of our single payer system. But I think we need to start with a new offer of getting back to basics and saying eyes, teeth, mental health, and medicine are all part of your health. They all have to be part of our single payer healthcare system. And I think we have to reboot the conversation around healthcare so that we can actually talk about expanding it to cover all elements of health. You know, mental health is now really understood across society as one of the biggest challenges that we face, and it's all out of pocket, you know, almost all. So trying to find a therapist who's covered by a provincial plan, it's a nightmare. So I think we have a chance to really re-engage Canadians and start the project over. This question also involves affordability. And I have to say that our campaign has been really focused on things like a public ownership, a public option for groceries. You folks in New Brunswick have some of the most corporate concentration in the entire country because you have this monolithic Irving family that dominates every aspect of your economy. But the rest of us have it too. We got 5 big grocery chains control 80% of the market. We got 3 cell phone companies, Bell, Rogers, TELUS. They collude, they price fix, they give us shitty service with the highest possible prices, and on and on and on. Every sector of our lives is dominated by a handful of corporations. So our campaign has been advocating strongly for a public option for nonprofit, crown corporation, work with municipalities, whatever is the model. The federal government actually has to step in and break up these corporate monopolies by providing a nonprofit public option for the essentials of life, including especially a massive wartime level build out of non-market housing, public housing, supportive housing, cooperative housing. And some of that stuff you'll hear from all the campaigns. So I'm not claiming like we're the only ones, but we've really been focused on public ownership and the public option to make life more affordable for people.
Thank you. Tanille, I'll move the question to you.
Yeah, you're not going to hear me like disagree with anything that Avi's offering there. Like I'm here for it. I think we need like strong federal legislation that ties funding to public programs, especially ones that like aren't underpinned by private organizations. So some of our things look beautiful from the outside, like our pharmacare program, but when you look at the administration of how it's delivered, it's still private organizations that are benefiting from that public service. So like we truly need to live our values at every level of the work that we do, not just some surface level so that it looks pretty from the outside. We need to ensure that funding is going to our provinces for healthcare in a really good way and in a structured way where there is some accountability so that we're able to send more funds that are tied to specific deliverables within those provinces to support them to navigate the complexities of healthcare system. So the Canada Health Act and the way it's been delivered has kind of just been gutted over the years, and a big check's written and off it goes, and then you kind of hope for the best that you have like great people in your healthcare administration to deliver amazing services, and that's not always the case. And then we don't have really any great accountability measures for saying, oh, we invested this much money in mental health rollout in your provinces, and like this is what we got for it. Like no one really knows what they're getting for their money because there's just no accountability built into the process. So we need to fix that. And all this stuff is super doable. Like it just takes the political will and the action to actually do it. We know that this work is also like not even in the peripheral vision of the Liberals or the Conservatives. They're not interested in caring for the average Canadian. I would love. So I have a soft spot for libraries. It's one of our only true public spaces that exist across Canada. And we don't really do anything for libraries at the federal level. We pawn it off on the provinces and the municipalities who, in many instances, like in BC, our libraries are so far behind in their tax transfers to be able to operate themselves. In Campbell River, it's like 14 years of like underfunding. It's brutal. And our libraries are on the front lines of our housing crisis. They're on the front lines of our toxic drug supply. Like these are the folks that are doing the work in our community for our most vulnerable, and we do not support them to do it. And even while we're watching Canada Post be under threat, like my brain, like, I mean, I like to fix everything. Like this is the social worker in me. It's like, we're going to fix it. We're going to do it with nothing and it's going to be okay. Why don't we bring together things like Canada Post offices and libraries? Why don't we build new structures that put those public programs that we're trying to operate at a federal level into public spaces that already exist? And then let's offer some funding with it. Maybe let's chuck housing on top, mixed use, fantastic. And then as we're freeing up spaces from the properties that we rent or that we own federally for Canada Post offices, more housing, more public programs. Let's use the stuff that we already have in a much better way to serve people in an easier, more accessible way. And like none of this is rocket science. This is just proper planning. This is just like, good planning in a country. So yeah, all of these options are fantastic. I mean, you're not going to hear, I mean, I hope you're not going to hear any of us really be too far off in the distance with any of this. Healthcare is the thread that links us all. You can link everything back to healthcare, including transportation. Like I know Avi is a champion of electrifying the bus systems. I would love to see friggin' rail across the country between rural and urban. I do not want rural people having a shorter life expectancy because they live in rural communities, which is my challenge. So North Island, our life expectancy in Port Hardy at the most northern tip of our island is 9 years shorter than the Saanich Peninsula, which is here just out to the east side of the island. That's disgusting. The North Island has our highest Indigenous population on the island. Like, that's horrible. We should not see stats that are representing that way. Transportation, if you can get places, if you can easily access the supports and the food and housing in your community, you're naturally going to be healthier. You being healthier puts less pressure on our healthcare system, which then allows that system to function better and more efficiently. Everything can come back to health. Everything. And we need to make investments in these other options, in these public options for groceries so people can buy their food, in the great bus or train or scooter, however you're going to get to that grocery store so that it's accessible. Because all of this is going to help our healthcare system. And we know that our healthcare system needs help across the board. So yeah, I'm going to stop because we can talk forever, and I know there's two more questions.
Thank you very much. Well, I actually might need to. Maybe we'll limit the responses to 3 or 4 minutes. Are one of you okay with getting a stopwatch out?
Yeah.
Very sorry. Yeah, I know you guys are limited for time, so I want to make sure we get it all through it.
That's all good.
So, the next question goes to Tanille again, and I do apologize. This is a bit of a tougher questions for British Columbians to answer. But with I'm gonna do correct, right?
Did you say 2 or 3?
We'll do 3 minutes. Okay. With Quebec abandoning the broader French-Canadian identity, what kind of relationship would your NDP pursue with the French language and the different French-Canadian cultures across the country, including the Acadians of New Brunswick and the wider Atlantic region?
And can the question be answered in French?
Oh.
No, it can't. Avi might be able to take a stab at that.
Still practicing
I won't be
French
able
debate.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't be able to reply in French. Not right off the hop without actually practicing and getting help from my multiple interpreters. That I have a really amazing little French crew.
But you're working hard on it, Tanille, hey?
It's very hard. Here, I'll answer your question, and then I'll explain why it's extremely also hard for me. So like I'm super deeply committed to bringing forward the French language in a really equitable way across the country. As someone born and raised in BC, our commitment and availability of the French language is nowhere near what it is kind of on our East Coast counterparts. It puts our community members at a disadvantage. I'd also love to see the same level of commitment to ensuring our Indigenous languages are strong and present within their linguistic communities, even just as a starting place. We should be committed to language revitalization of Indigenous languages in our country. We should be able to see those languages spoken in schools across the country, and we should never lose sight of our French language commitment and our French community that is so vibrant in Canada, and have that equitable across the country. So my journey on relearning French. So I haven't taken French since middle school. In BC, that's kind of common. You kind of lose it once you go into high school. But what's really interesting for me is that I've been trying to learn my Likwela language because I only actually have like 6 fluent language speakers in my community left. And so I've really been committed in my adult life to trying to pick up as much Likwela as I can. But the phonetic of Likwela is so different than French that I'm trying to read French and my brain is like, what are you doing? Like, that's not how you say like that syllable or that consonant or whatever. And so it is. I laugh all the time when I'm trying to practice because I go to say a word and I'm enunciating it in like my native phonetic and not in French. So yeah, so we are practicing very much. So I want to respectfully be able to offer as much French as I can, and then I also do ask for some lenience because my journey is very different with languages.
All right, thank you very much. And I mean, and to both of you, we look forward to kind of seeing how your French progresses at the Montreal debate. We're very excited for that. I think we're gonna do like a watch party or something. But Avi, I moved the
C'est
floor to you.
super. Oui, pour moi, j'avoue que mon français, c'est un travail en cours, mais c'est un engagement à vie. C'est une priorité fondamentale. Euh, c'est vrai que ce que Tanille a dit, que à l'ouest du Canada, il n'y a pas la priorité dans le système d'éducation publique, euh, mais il y a des communautés en Colombie-Britannique où nous habitons. J'écoute Radcan tous les matins et je pratique tous les jours. Nous avons des petites jasettes avec mon équipe pour, pour rester dans la langue. Il y aura un débat moins de 2 semaines et c'est un défi énorme pour pour nous comme anglophones, mais il faut travailler. Je travaille très, très fort tous les jours et, et c'est essentiel de comprendre que les communautés francophones partout au Canada sont également importants que Québec. Et la question de Québec et les Québécois, les Québécoises, c'est une autre chose. Alors, l'attention, surtout, c'est très important. Alors, qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire? Pour moi, c'est ma troisième langue. J'ai appris espagnol comme adulte pendant la production de mon premier film en Argentine il y a 20 ans. Alors, j'ai une compétition aussi comme Tanille. Quand j'essaie de parler français, normalement, l'espagnol est chicane avec l'autre langue. Alors, c'est un défi, mais c'est une réalité au Canada. Il faut parler français et on peut seulement travailler fort. C'est ça.
Fantastic, merci. Uh, we'll keep Avi here for the last of our prepared questions. A great deal of Canada's vast wealth and natural resources is facing a concerning trend of foreign ownership. Here in New Brunswick, the Irvings threaten departure whenever local government seeks to remove any of the special treatment that they receive, such as subsidized power and property tax. 70% of all oil extraction is foreign owned. Our lumber, fisheries, etc., funnel wealth out of the country while millions of everyday Canadians struggle to make ends meet. How would you address this?
Well, first of all, the federal NDP has to have a very clear climate policy, which it hasn't in recent years. We need to get off fossil fuels as a country. Governments are addicted to the revenue. I understand that. It's a very profitable industry, but the climate emergency is so severe. And the oil industry has figured out a way to make a barrel of oil with half as many workers as it did a decade ago. So the biggest enemy to oil and gas workers is the industry itself. On the larger question of shipping raw resources, yeah, that's the economy of the 18th and 19th century, and we actually need a 21st century economy. We on our campaign, we've been campaigning on power lines, not pipelines. So we need an east-west electricity grid that is a massive nation-building project that would require thousands of unionized electricians and major construction projects to be able to trade renewable energy east-west in Canada so that the hydro resources in Quebec and British Columbia can feed into other provinces. In the east, you guys have a lot of wind and there's immense potential for wind projects. We need nation building that makes our economy more self-sufficient in the face of economic attacks from Trump and from the tariffs. When it comes to shipping raw resources, Trump is doing us a favor, as much pain as it's causing economically. It is forcing us to look at domestic use of our raw materials. And so a project like an electric bus revolution in Canada to reconnect communities, to provide free public transit everywhere. We can build electric buses anywhere in the country. I was at one of the only EV bus manufacturing plants in Winnipeg. There's another one in Quebec, and there should be one in every province where we use Canadian steel and materials. We create the auto parts and the assembly in the same plant, the way they do in the New Flyer plant in Winnipeg. And we actually provide a public good on a wartime level scale. This applies for housing as well, by using Canadian materials to satisfy the basic needs of people who are being ripped off by corporations that are just shipping raw resources everywhere. We can't continue to do the same thing over and over again, try to turn nature into money. We got to focus on the things that actually make people's lives better. One last quick footnote, the care economy employs 3.4 million people in Canada. Healthcare, education, childcare, and long-term care. It's the largest sector by employment. More people work in care than any other sector. Largely women, huge proportion of racialized women. They don't get paid well enough. It's the most undervalued sector. If we had better paid childcare workers, we would have $10 a day childcare everywhere in the country, and healthcare workers, and on and on. So there are all kinds of things we can do to get off this resource trap. And you in New Brunswick know exactly what that looks like. And that's why we're fighting for it federally.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And Tanille.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that this stuff, and again, I don't disagree with what Avi's offering. All this stuff takes a huge political shift, right? In a ton of cases. And in order to do that, we do need to win in the next election. So we need a really strong strategy going to the next election. We need our leverage back. We need to be able to hold the current federal government and whatever we're looking into for the next one accountable, so we can make some of these changes and actually invest in the type of green projects that we need in our country. I mean, businesses will threaten to say, well, I'm just going to leave then. Like, if you're not going to let me do it my way, or you're not going to give me my grants or what have you, then I'm just going to leave. And it's like, go for it. Leave. We'll buy your business. We'll turn it public, rehire people in solid paying unionized jobs, and say, see you later. Like, go south. like whatever. This is like a really big pain point that we're in right now. Like, we have to fund the projects and the companies that we need to fund to turn them around so they're facing into Canada and not facing out. And that's expensive. It's a big price tag. It's a lot of work because we've underfunded workers for so freaking long, and we've let people get away with it. But we have to make that bold commitment. We have to shell out the dough to do that work. We will be forever grateful for it as a country when we are so strong standing on our own 2 feet, because we're resourcing ourselves. And the stronger we are, if we are an incredibly strong country that can stand on its own 2 feet, the amount of impact we can have worldwide with really helping in aid of other countries, it will be so much stronger. It'll be so much stronger for us to help other people if we're stronger ourselves. And like, this even includes, breaking down the barriers for our agricultural industry, our farmers across the country. Like, why are we not feeding ourselves? We can easily feed Canada, no problem, with our agricultural industry, but we're not prioritizing it. We're not making it happen. Everyone in the last election was like, we're going to break down interprovincial trade barriers. And there's been barely any progress on any of that. Like, it was a total line, right? We have to do that work. We have to support Canada first so that we can be that amazing country that swoops in and comes at a time of need for our other countries, our neighbors that really need us and need our help. So yeah, lots of work to do. Let's win the next election.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
I think, Ty, I think that I just want to draw a line here or something. I think Tanille called for exporting the Irvings to the United States, and I just want to say that might be the first plank of our shared platform. Me and Tanille.
Only if they take Jimmy Pattison with them.
Fair. We've got our own evil billionaires in BC that we'd like to just export as a raw resource.
Oh yeah, we can only hope. But it is 2:31, so if you guys have something you need to run off to, totally cool. But
do you want to stick around for a few minutes, Tanille, if they got other questions? Yeah.
Okay,
we'd love to stay.
So then I'll open the floor to our lovely members who want to ask a question. So, Mr. Gagne, you seem to be really ready.
Can you guys hear me well?
Yeah, we can, especially with your theater voice there.
Yes, great. So my question's budget 2025. Obviously, we're going to be voting on this federally in the next couple of days. It is calling for massive, massive cuts to our public sector, 40,000 public sector jobs. We're also hearing numbers like 10 to 15,000 posties losing their job. And we're tripling this military budget. It's not even an austerity. This isn't even an austerity budget. This is a war budget. And there's a question of whether who the hell are we going to war with? But I think this big broader question is, what do you guys as a campaign, do you guys support the federal party's direction on or lack of direction? We're not really sure what they're going to vote on this budget. What are your guys' feelings on this budget? Should the federal party vote against it and potentially trigger an election that may interrupt this entire race? Do you think it's more important or not? I guess.
Great question. Hard question. Whose turn is it to go first? Do you want to go, Tanille? I'm happy to do whatever.
I think it was Abby's.
I mean, I wouldn't be voting for the budget.
Okay,
I wouldn't be
yeah.
voting for the budget. If you to have like a quick, like if you don't have all day to read hundreds of pages of budget material, if you go to the back, there is an evaluation of the types of humans that this budget would privilege, and it's quite telling. There has been no investment in the average Canadian across the country in that budget. It's privileging the upper white class. And as a New Democrat, as a socialist, as someone who is trying to champion a pathway for equity in our country, I don't envision myself voting for a budget that isn't currently being amended to a place of equity, even trying to get to a place of equity. And they've put very specific carrots in that budget for our MPs, which I don't appreciate. I don't think you should be pulling on people's heartstrings to win a budget. I think that's disgusting. So yeah, I'm not in support of the budget if it's going to remain unamended.
Thank you. Abby?
Yeah, the budget is a nightmare. You can't call it an austerity budget because it is a war budget, as you said. You can't call it a spending budget because it's got $60 billion of public sector cuts and 40,000 jobs. So it's like a Carney special. I think the question of like whether or not to oppose the budget is actually a bit complicated. Of course I oppose the budget. Of course I would like to vote against this budget if I was in the House. What the 7 MPs, the Magnificent Seven, the Group of Seven, are confronting is that they're in a really tough spot because Canadians do not want an election. And my fear of an election right now is not about the leadership race or about like what would we do. Who cares? Tanille and I both have seats we want to run in. If the party suspended the leadership race because there was an election, we would go and run, and maybe we could come back and campaign as MPs in the next leadership race or not. Like, who cares? Like, we're talking about big things. My fear is that Carney has gone so far to the right. He's basically got the Liberals sitting in the laps of the Conservatives on the other side of the House. So if we pull the plug and have an election right now, there is a real threat that it could be a Poilievre government. Now, the Liberal defense increase is 3 times what the Conservatives were calling for in their last budget. So the Liberals have just created unlimited space on the hard right for the Conservatives by going so far over to their side. If we have an election right now and we have a Poilievre majority, we are in for a fucking nightmare, people. So we can't be just casual about this. I think it is, so these questions of political strategy are exactly what a leader has to deal with. I think the Conservatives and the Bloc were smarter than we were because we were in turmoil after the last election. And they said months ago, we are not going to vote for the budget unless, and the Bloc put down like 6 huge conditions, including massive increases in pension in the Canada Pension Plan, which I totally support, and we all do, right? So they took themselves off the playing board months ago, and we didn't. We said if it's an austerity budget, we won't vote for it. And like I said, now it's complicated. It's a massive spending budget with massive austerity. So we now, the 7 MPs, are in a really hard position. And I think we just have to be honest about that. It's easy for us on the outside to say, yeah, I would totally vote no, I don't care if there's an election. But for them, they're in a real dilemma. Things could actually get worse than a far-right Liberal government. We could have a far-right Conservative government that's emboldened by Trump and that's emboldened by the Liberals creating that space for them. And so I don't envy Dawn and the other 6 MPs. I don't know how they're navigating it. I trust them to do their best. And there are divisions in our federal caucus and they disagree about some things. And I hope they can come together and do the same thing, because that's the kind of caucus we want to have. But this is a messy one, guys. I think we got to be real.
Thank you. And it is but we are taking up some time. So what we'll do, I'm thinking 2 more questions, but we'll limit it to 30 seconds each. Or
yeah,
okay,
happy to do the rapid fire round.
Okay, Nick, I saw your hand was up earlier, and you were very patient. So please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to word this quickly. It's sort of speaking of like a Poilievre government, the risk of a conservative government, we're seeing like trans rights, Alberta, Ontario, like out in the US, as a trans person myself, also work with trans youth. I hear their fears, right? I hear what's their fears about governments. You know, what, I don't know how to word this properly. You know, human rights basically are at a risk, and that's a big topic. You know, what is your thoughts on this? Your how you would champion human rights, ensure that trans rights are protected as much as humanly possible at the federal level.
It would be Abby first, I think.
Yeah, this is an issue that's really close to my life as well. My sister Ilana was just got a job as the executive director of the Rainbow Railroad, which is a longstanding program that gets people out of dangerous situations because they're trans or queer. We have to be a beacon. It's a fundamental human right. Trans folks, like immigrants, are being blamed by fascists. And the terrain on which this is happening is a massive immiseration of people. Like economic desperation is the fertile field where the far right thrives. And the people who are most vulnerable, trans folks, immigrants, and others, are getting blamed. And so we have to have economic responses too. Housing is a trans issue. Healthcare is a trans issue. Transportation is a trans issue too. So we got to fight the good fight on all those fronts. But we got to stand up against hate really, really clearly every single day.
Thank you. Tanille?
Yeah, absolutely agreed. As someone who ran against a total outright fascist in the last election, I feel it. Fascism is on the rise in Canada. We do a good job of hiding it. I've touched base with the group Canada Against Hate. They are putting a huge focus on this work in Canada and have some really great recommendations as far as like where we should be going, what we should be doing, how we need to pay attention to this kind of stuff in our country and make sure that people are well educated about it. And then yeah, in our healthcare system, I mean, there's so many opportunities to have healthcare coverage that works for all people, and the Conservatives talk about to us LGBTQIA people being included in our healthcare system as if it's like some big financial burden. It's actually a huge cost savings to have people that are healthy and well. And if that looks like having hormone replacement therapy and that is going to make you healthy and well, let's get it. Let's make it happen.
All right, thank you. So we have time for one more question. Is anyone ripping and roaring to ask it? Anyone digitally ripping and roaring to ask it? All right. So
Okay, I'll ask the question.
okay. All right, Dave. You're it. You're up. You're the chosen one.
Hey, folks.
Hi there.
Thanks for
Hi.
your time and showing up. Listen, I've been an NDP voter all my life, and I've voted against the winning team. How do you guys change the perception of the Canadian public at large and give that winning face? Because it's too easy to be always on the opposition and give your suggestions. And if you're never going to be called to be accountable, then that gives you a face of maybe not having as much on the ball as the guys that are always sitting with the gavel. So how do you present a winning face going forward?
And I believe it is Tanille starting that off.
Yeah, huge question. I think we need to show up and apologize for being absentee. I think we need to own the criticisms that our party is carrying because we've done this to ourselves, in my opinion. So I think we need to show up, we need to show out, we need to listen, and we need to after we listen, we need to act on what we heard. Actions speak louder than words, and we need to live our values. And if we're not going to do those things, we cannot expect people to see us as a winning party. We can't. We need to show up first.
As Tanille and I have crossed the country meeting NDP members at all these different provincial conventions and stuff like that, we know there is a lot of NDP TSD out there. And this is an acronym that my campaign manager coined in the middle of a meeting once. And I think that's right. We have to acknowledge it. I think the NDP has suffered from not enough straight talk. And I think authenticity is what works in politics these days. Unfortunately, we're seeing cartoonish characters like Trump channel authenticity more than centrists. And we need to be able to talk straight to Canadians. I think we suffered in the last election because we propped up the Liberals federally for a long time because we were waiting for dental care to get implemented enough that it couldn't be rolled back by the next government. But Judd Meat never said that. So he was always shaking his fist at Johnston. But then when push came to shove, we voted to keep the government in. We need to be transparent. We need to have straight talk. We need to have solutions like a public option for groceries and other things that you've heard from us today that are easily understandable and are actually within the power of the government to implement. And we need to just start getting straight with the Canadian people. We're not going to form government in the next election. So if one of us is elected leader and we're like, when I'm prime minister, this shit doesn't work anymore. We have to be real with people. And I think that's how we're going to rebuild. There is a need for an alternative to the liberal, conservative, corporate alliance in Canada. We are it. You in New Brunswick have a three-party system, and there's all this space for you on the left to come back as a genuine alternative. And that's how we're going to do it.
All right, thank you very much. Then on behalf of the New Brunswick NDP Provincial Council and all of our members, thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. And we hope to host you here in New Brunswick at some point before the end of the leadership race. So thank you so much.
It's been so great meeting you folks today. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Sign up lots of members for
Thank you
us
so
and
much,
for you.
guys. Yeah, let's grow your crew over there. You're doing great so far, though. Wow, you're turning it around. So we're here to help.
Bye, all.
Thanks, guys. See you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.